remember, as we said in the last pasuk, Avram had started to chide Lot and tell him that if Lot continued to follow a path of lawlessness, it was something that was going to end up getting both of them into trouble with the locals. So Avram had said that we need to follow my path as far as morality, and your path as far as economics. So you can choose the economically best place and put yourself there, but you have to come with my side as far as the morality goes. So here we're saying that the word halo, isn't it, can be separated out into two parts. Lo, no, and rhetorically saying, isn't it? So it is not. So he's challenging Lot's philosophy to say that we will have possession of the land later, and therefore we can do what we want with it. Lot has to come to Avram's moral position, and that's what's hidden inside that word halo. So that's why it's sweeping the stuff from before and going forward again. That the moral position has to stay that way. Kol haaretz with two pashtaot, and again we'll remember that pashta has a fixed place at the end of the word. So when that is not the syllable that gets the accent, we get a second pashta going on the accented syllable. So the one on the tzadi sofit would normally be where the pashta would rest, but it's not kol haaretz, it's kol haaretz. So because the aleph is getting the accent, we have the doubling of the note. Number two, there is ample vacant territory around us, which might be usable for various purposes. In fact, all the land in any direction is available and not inhabited by anyone, by anybody, as shown by the double directional shape of the reading mark. So here we're saying whichever direction you look in. So you look this way, you look that way, and that's why the note is doubled. So he's telling Lot again, as far as economics go, you can place yourself wherever you want to. So the first note, we need to narrow the focus in terms of the morality, but we can widen the focus in terms of the economics. You can pick any place. Lifanecha, before you, with a two-part katon, the two-part note, one dot above the other. Number three, it is open before you to make your choice and decide which part of the region you prefer as the most suitable for you, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading line. So Lot can make a value judgment, which part is better, which part is worse, and he can put himself in whichever one of those he wants. The parade, split, with the mercha lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving us forward into what's going to go afterwards. That is part on good relations. Latin divide suavitur. Sorry, sure. My Latin's not there. Split and be sovereign of your own independent ground, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So you can go forward to whichever, as we split, to whichever part you want. And we have a side note here. This indicates that poverty and troubles cement people, while wealth and abundance is a cause of splitting, division, and argument. I think this is a sort of a philosophical comment. Yeah. I don't know that it's a truism, but when there are more things of importance to argue over, you will necessarily have more arguments.
Or just that when you are fully satisfied with what you have, one tends to be more full of oneself and like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're less concerned where my next meal comes from.
Satisfaction, I'm not sure enters into it. It's more a question of ego.
Yep.
So wealth has the risk of ego to it. That whenever you have things, you can certainly come from the point of view that it is your efforts and your efforts alone that got you those things, and therefore you are allowed. You now have a right to do what you need to defend those things. We'll go on. Na, please, with the closing tipcha and a pause after it. Please give serious consideration to this proposition, for the sake of all parties involved, as of the present and the foreseeable future, as denoted by the closing shape of the reading mark. So you have to do it this way. Otherwise, there might not be a good future. And again, we have a side note. Hipared na. Split please is not only a social form of address, but here has an individual meaning, as accentuated by the individual mark. So what I think he is trying to say here is that this is splitting on good terms. If you put the phrase hipared na together, split please, it's split for the sake of maintaining the relationship. So because the two notes sort of form a parenthetical group, they join together. He's saying that split physically in order to stay together on other levels. Me'alai, from over me, with the stabilizing etnachta. In result, you shall remove any blame from over me, and you shall cease bossing me in any situation, as suggested by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So, interesting interpretation. Most times when we would read this in translation, it's you should separate from me. But if you take it very literally, me'alai means from on top of me. So what he's saying is, Lot has to stop being the one who's saying he's the moral authority. You have to take that position of being quote unquote right away from him, and let him be prosperous, but not right. Mm-hmm. So you have to stop being the one who is on top. Im hasmol, with a munach. So this sharply separates from what's come from before, but mostly moving forward into what's going to go afterwards. If the left, number 7, I leave for you the first choice in your selecting. If the left part of the available country meets with your approval, you shall take it over, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So the two of them are going to have separate territories, and that's what the sharp demarcation of the Menach says. And if you're going to go that way, ve'emina, and I will keep rightwards, with the two-part katon, number 8. I will satisfy you, avoid any misunderstandings, and I will keep rightwards, which shall approve my aspirations, as specified by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So I'm going to be in a different location, and I'm going to maintain my principles. That's why we have the two-part note. The im hayamin, and again, the backwards-looking tipcha, which is going to focus us back on what's going to come from before and pause afterwards. And if the right, number 9, if you suspect that the site which I would have contains something superior, I will change the plan. And if the right part of the land appeals to you more, settle there and use it, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So again, following that same plan, Lot is given the economic choice of choosing his section of land. Ve'as me'ila. and I will keep left, number 10, with the stabilizing sub-pasuk. In such an instance, we will have no argument, and I will keep left for it, not to be in your way or interfere in your situation. So, before the two concepts were sort of linked together, because in a small, the emina, the munach leads you into, is a connecting note that leads you into emina. Here, the im hayamin, if you're going to keep the right, the asma'ila, the two are separated because the tifcha has a pause, and while he doesn't stress this part, I thought that this was significant because yamin, God's right, is normally found to be dominant over the left. So he's telling Lot, if you're going to go to the weaker side, the side that has maybe weaker morality, then Abraham will still be in the place of Amin, in the place of Amunah, in the place of faith, and he'll have both morality and possession. The im hayamin, and if Lot chooses to stay on the right side morally, the asma'ila, Abraham is still going to maintain a position, but they're going to be much more on equal footing. Avram won't have to be so distant from Lot. So while they will be separate, they'll sort of be equal. Whereas in the first part, Avram is going to have to, in some way, exert some moral authority over Lot. So they're going to still need a connection because Avram's going to have to be an influence on Lot to keep him from going astray if he goes to, quote unquote, the left side.
That's beautiful. And is that because the small has a munach?
Has a munach, which is a connecting note. The im hayamin, pause, it's a melech, it's a separating note. The asma'ila, and so those two words stand apart. So as we read through the sentence, we're going to certainly notice that differentiation between right-left and how they join together the first time and how they separate the second time. Halo kol haaretz lefanecha hiparedna me'alai im hasmol ve'emina ve'im hayamin ve'asma'ila. And again, I thought that was, even though it wasn't mentioned in the Perush, I thought that was important to bring up. Vayisalot with the munach, we're on the next page, 35, 13/10. Again, munach, and he lifted Lot. Lot evaluated the potentials of the land, and he lifted Lot a preference for the natural conditions which would secure him economic stability, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So Lot chose to separate himself, and I think that's what we pointed out, is whether he wanted a connection to Avram or not. So he chose to separate himself and move towards Et Einav with the Rivi'i. He assessed the land with his eyes, overlooking the whole area from a distance, and as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So again, Rivi'i has this breadth to it that we continue to allude to. So Lot looked wide and far, and followed what was most appealing to his eyes, what was most appealing to his desire. So we have in Kriyat Shema, "V'lo tatur acharei levatchem v'acharei einechem." So you shouldn't be one who goes astray after the things that your eyes see. But this is what Lot seems to be doing. Vayar with a pashta. So this is going to emphasize the word and push us forward into what's going to go after. And he noticed, number 3, at first glance, he looked into the distance and he noticed the valley which was green and covered with vegetation. as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he looks, and it's over there. Et kol kikar, with all plain, with a munach, so separated from what's come from before and moving forward into what goes after, with all plain lying, plain meaning a flat piece of land, not something that's simple. With all plain lying before him and producing abundant food, Lot expected to be able to increase the quantity of his production and also improve its quality, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So he's going to do much better than he did. What he did before is going to be nothing compared to what he's going to do if he goes into a place that is as productive as that. Ha-Yardain, of the Yardain, with a katon. Those territories appear to be similar on both sides of the Yardain, which flowed in the middle, as denoted by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So here, the two dots say the one side of the Jordan and the other side of the Jordan. Ki, with a bracha. This is lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving us forwards into what's going to go after. Those because, number 6, because of the relatively straightness of the river, both sides could be observed simultaneously for a substantial distance, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the light connection to the word Yardain before is saying that you could see both sides of the Jordan, and it went on from there, kula, with a tifcha, closing the thought and pausing slightly afterwards. It totally, number 7, although the land was stretched out for a fairly long distance, it totally appeared blooming with a dense, uninterrupted flora, as expressed by the closing shape of the reading mark. Before, with the word ki, we were talking about the piece of land, and here we're talking about its fertility. So we'll notice that when you see the word kula, the hay has a dot in it, which means it's a possessive. All of it totally sort of inside itself. So here he's looking to the inside of the land, and that's why we talk about the properties of the land, because of the mapik of the dot that's in the hay. So it's sort of a possessive, all that belongs to it. And again, normally he's very careful, very medactic on how he translates, and that's why I was surprised that he didn't do something to translate the mapik in the hay. And by the way, we had before said that we were going to comment when we saw words that had a beged kefet letter, a beit gimel daled kaf pei tav, that lost their dot in order to show that they've lost some of their strength. Mm-hmm. And here again, we have land that is so perfectly fertile, the most fertile probably in the land of Israel, and yet chula without the dot. Why? Because even though economically it's fertile, morally it's a little bereft. So when we say kula, all of it, we would figure that everything about it was great. It's got a defect. And we see the defect in its losing some of its strength. Mashkeh, watered, with an etnachta. And again, an interesting way of translating. Normally mashkeh, if you took it literally, would be something that waters. And here he's saying that it's a gerund, that it's watered. Lot understood that, so this is stabilizing at Nachta. Lot understood that the land was sufficiently watered by an adequate natural supply, as specified by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. And here, literally, we see that the etnachta is the water coming up from the ground and making the area fertile. Lifnei, with a munach. So We haven't run across one of these in a while. Munach, munach revi'i. So this is sort of a phrase that we will get sometimes the next three notes. And always after the first of these three, I'm going to get it. So the combination is munach, munach, revi'i. Always between the two munachs, there is a hard pause. So there's always a psik there. There's always a line that comes in between those two to separate them out. So even though it's not written here in the text, after the word lifnei, there's a hard pause. So this is a word that is separated out from what's come from before, trying to connect to what's going after, but separated out from it. Number 9. He realized that this was a thriving country with outstanding characteristics prior to the catastrophic change which occurred later, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark followed by psik. So, before, and it had potential to continue and stay that way, but that ended. Shachet, of destroying, again with a munach, separated out from what's come from before, and now leading into the word that goes after. In the understanding of the rotating wheel, the great affluence at the beginning led to deterioration and sadism, which called for a punishment of destroying the source of evil, along with those responsible for the misconduct, as conveyed by the shape of the reading mark. I couldn't find the reference to rotating wheel.
You meant spinning wheel, like the song. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, just things.
I think it's Galgal Chazer Ba'olam.
Yeah.
Not sure. Again, the concept he's trying to say is that people who get wealthier get more moral, have more of a moral decline, and that is a cycle that feeds on itself, and therefore at some point it leads to imminent need for correction. Hashem, number 11, God with a rivi'i, so in a broad sense, when the behavior of the inhabitants was contrary to their blessings and intolerable to heavenly justice, God took measures to eradicate the cause of the distorted attitudes, comparable to the flood, but on a minor scale, as demonstrated by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So, God, in the sense of being somebody who would give and give to support, but would have to be forced to take away in order to correct. Et stom with a pashta. So this is going to emphasize and push us forward to what comes after. Number 12. The prospering lawlessness was primarily connected with stom, which was the center and symbol of all abuses, and it was also first to be penalized, as depicted by the directional shape of the reading mark, as well as being mentioned first. So stom is going to be the root of this, and things are going to flow out from there to the et amorah, with the two-part katon, and with amorah, number 13. The system and the style of living in stom influence the surrounding periphery, finding matching correspondence, and with amorah, morality, justice, and conscience vanished, as signified by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So the influence of the one is going to let the other go from a higher level to a lower level. Kigan Hashem, like a garden of God, again with the pashta, focused on the importance of the word and moving us forward. Number 14, the abundance of those cities derived from their neighboring land, which was packed with blessings like a garden of God, known as the Garden of Eden, as emphasized by the directional shape of the related reading mark. So again, we're going from a place where blessing flows out from, and that has importance, Gigam Hashem. So that's why it gets the Pashta. And we have a side note. The Zohar says, until now it is not clear which was the real Garden of Eden. In my opinion, it also it is also abstract, and it was not limited to one particular place, but to famous places of an optimally mild climate, an ample supply of water, and abundant growth, not depending on rain. The delta of the Nile, the plain of the Yarden, or the land of Mesopotamia could be cited as examples. So, the Mechaber's personal interpretation is that this is any place that's verdant, any place that's very green, could have this term applied to it. The Zohar gives us a little bit of a different answer, which he started to quote and then stopped. Maybe we're going to pause for just a second so I can find it.